Japan has a global reputation for producing high-quality media and technological products. Anime, manga, and video games are some of Japan's biggest industries and have become increasingly influential in the Western world. The diversity of these industries has also spawned controversy over acceptable content. Despite these negativities, the anime world can still provide a positive and influential effect on the global sphere.
So my name's Anthony. I'm a third year business and IT student at UTS. I've been here since 2012 and I'm 21.
Right, I'm Mark Capriotis. I'm 21 years old. I study journalism at UTS and I'm in my final year.
So I'm Frank. I am a third year UTS student, but I'm also the screenings director of the UTS Anime Club. So yeah, for the last 2 years.
We also have Zhong Yi, a Chinese international student who have just arrived UTS this semester. He is currently doing Master of Accounting.
So in my personal free time, I do like to read manga a bit. I do have some favorites. My favorite thing to do of all time would probably be working, because I like money.
Watch anime and play video games.
Well, as you can see, so what I do in my free time, I'm a musician, so I play a lot of music, but obviously, as you can see here, I read a fair bit of manga, I watch a fair bit of anime, and play video games a lot, and sometimes do uni work.
I started anime back when I was in year 10, after a friend showed me about that. It was actually a weird story, and I didn't watch anime for a year after that. But after that, I got really into it, so I started with like Blue Exorcist, and just kept going from there, all the way till maybe a year ago.
I was probably introduced to video games when I was like 6, maybe even younger, because my brothers used to play games all the time, and I basically just imitated them, and one thing led to another.
其实是非常久了，因为我的话从很小开始就开始接触，从 Family Computer 开始，当时是20世纪90年代吧，那会儿还很小，所以说大概从4、5岁开始了。
I touched probably video games the most, followed by anime, then manga.
Video games. It's a close one, but video games.
I'm actually proud of my multitasking skills, so I normally watch anime while playing video games, or doing things at the same time, but I'd probably say anime.
So I play video games just because I have a lot of free time. It's an easy thing to pick up. Like, it's just, you can play with friends, you got everything you can do there. Manga's there just for the story, and there's a lot of good stories to tell, and I really, really, really love art. That's why I'm always into like really nice looking manga and anime. And yeah, just throughout the years, I've just watched as many as I could.
Just because it's so diverse. With anime, there's the good joke that if you can think of it, you can draw it, and you can make it into existence. So with anime, it's like, that's why I've bought these things here. It's a sport, a ping pong. It's an anime about ping pong. It's an anime about legendary heroes from the past being summoned for the fight for the Holy Grail. It's an anime about Edo period Japan being invaded by aliens. Someone thought of that, they drew it, or in this case, animated it, and it became a thing. And like, the limit is literally your imagination.
Well, originally for manga and anime, I found it refreshing because it's so different to Western media. And so I liked that unique storytelling, and it was very character-driven, which lets you sort of embody the character in that sense. And similar thing for video games. where it's a sense of escapism as you play, because there's no way I'm going to do that stuff in real life.
你的提问是动漫嘛，所以说就要分动画和漫画两方面来谈。关于我个人的话，还是比较涉猎比较广泛，因为如果说动画，光粗略的提出这个概念的话，就要分两种大块，一种是3D 或2D，或者是日本或美国这种，他们是完全的 different style。对于我个人来讲，是必须也是偏向日本动画和日本漫画，这是对于我个人来说。然后至于里面的细分类的话，如果是动画的话，也有好多分类，但是这些我是都有涉猎的，并没有哪些特别的偏好或喜好，因为只要是优秀的作品，无论它的类型是什么样，其实都会获得认同。
And I spent about, I don't know, $600 on manga. I owned about 30-ish series, like ranging from like samurai stories all the way to romance and all that stuff. But since then, I didn't really use it anymore, and I gave my collection away to my cousins, and it's all been scattered and all that.
So then I heard from your sibling. Then what about your parents? Did they support you?
They were a little bit not confused, but they didn't really get it at first. But then my brothers and I showed my parents Death Note, and so my mum loves Death Note, and my dad watches anime with me every night.
Just for a short interruption, Death Note is an anime about a high school student who actually got a notebook that when you write people's name on it, knowing how they look like, that way the person will die in 1 minute. But then because the main character is a justice person, so instead of using the notebook for his personal needs and desires, he decided to use the notebook to kill all the criminals. This anime actually create a lot of controversy and debates on internet.
我是非常幸运的，因为我的父母的话对我的爱好一般通常都是很尊重的。这点确实和其他的有些父母不太一样，而且我也见到了太多就是身边的人因为自己喜欢动画或者是漫画，尤其是日本动画和漫画期间，曾经和家长发生过很多不愉快甚至摩擦，然后而且不能处理好自己的学习，这些确实是现实中也是一直在发生的。但是我想，正如不能说因为刀可以杀人，所以就把刀一律禁止，所以我们也不能说因为这种娱乐方式然后导致了多少人不好，所以就把娱乐方式整个都禁绝，这种态度一定是不对的。因为关于暴力的问题，我认为抛开分级制度谈暴力是没有任何意义的。你分级是 M 分级和是 R18 分级和当然不同的国家和地区也有不同的分级系统。如果拿一个像 Little Planet 3那种像一种面向孩子的游戏和 Mad Max 或是 Assassin's Creed 这种主要面对成年人的游戏来谈血腥和暴力，我认为这不存在任何可比性。所以然而大家还是对所谓的暴力色情还保持有一定反感，这可能是出于不同地区的文化传统以及不同人的人生经历，这个是很难一概而论的。但是还是我的观念是，你可以不喜欢一样东西，但是你不能剥夺别人也喜欢的权利。所以说你可以提出反对意见，但是我认为只要是在言论自由的范围内，或者是它符合宪法符合相关的不同地区的法律规定，我认为它就是应该存在的。所以说并不是它本身暴力色情怎么样，所以它不应该存在的问题，而是一个它是否符合法律或违反法律的问题，这是完全不一样的。
Well, with violence, it's like the degrees of violence vary greatly. So and also because it's animated, that takes the edge off as opposed to more realistic violence that they can achieve in live action films nowadays. So I don't think violence is too much of an issue. As for sexual content, it's also because anime is a very Japanese thing, and that whole Japanese attitude towards sex and sexuality is a very different one to the Western concept. So that way, often Westerners will look at anime and interpret it as this, oh, this is disgusting, this is very strange, and we don't like it because it's different from what we consider to be sexually appropriate. Not that I look at it and I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. Normally I just avoid it myself, but you can see why the general populace, or in the West at least, would view this as more like sexually deviant than they would their own media because of the cultural differences.
Not necessarily that I disagree, but I think it's a very one-sided way of thinking. Yes, anime, manga, video games, they all have violent elements, but that's not the whole picture. There are games and series and everything that can be lighthearted, can be sweet. It's just that it's a case of the loud minority as opposed to the silent majority. So it's like everyone hears about the new GTA and how violent it is, and everyone goes up in arms, but no one really cares about Minecraft in that sense. So there's always two sides to the same story. There is a recommended age for things, and series are targeted at age groups, but it's sort of similar to the Australian rating system, where it's more of a recommendation and no one really heeds it. Because I went overseas last year, and you see a lot of very interesting things there, because over there, sort of restricted materials aren't seen in the same light as it is in Western culture. It's like, it's a product to be sold, so why not sell it? So they just kind of put it out there. And I don't necessarily agree with that, because the wrong people could be looking at it.
So with like eroge or H anime, I guess like that's what people want to watch. It's like a really big market, and there's money to be made. It's like there's a lot of money to be made. You've seen all through like maybe like Sora, Xora, or whatever it is, High School DxD, anything like that. And even with all the like horror animes, like it's very brutal. It's the same with games as well. Like people want to see it because it interests them, and of course there's like people are willing to make it because there's money to be there. Yes, I do agree that it should be classified as soon as possible, because the genres of anime can go from just romantic to just plain violence, and sometimes it's just too much and it shouldn't be shown. Besides that, television is like a very difficult thing to put anime on, because you have to get it approved. You have to get like a high enough viewer count that will actually try to watch it. But I don't think most anime should be on there, because there's a lot of innuendos, there's a lot of like sexual references, there's a lot of violence. Like violence is a really main thing in anime. You probably watch anything there and you'll see some sort of violence or fighting, and it's probably not a good idea to show this like at the 6 o'clock start, where all the children aged from like 3 to 12 watch it, and it's probably just not a good time. There was one instance in Australian television where this anime called Maraka was being shown. I'm not too sure what they were thinking, but it's a very, very popular anime. And it was popular for a reason. Like it was infamous for destroying people's minds and giving a story about it. And it was very, very cutesy for the first 3 episodes. And that's what I thought Australia thought of it. They just watched the first 3 episodes and just thought it was safe enough for Australian children. But after the 3rd episode hit, it just turned into pure violence. Like you don't understand how this can affect Australian children, or like any person in particular. Even adults will find this disturbing. So you've got like 3 children, like personified to be actual like people, and out of nowhere it just comes a violent scene where this girl's head gets ripped off, and then the whole anime is about it happening over and over again, just to prove a point. And that's not really the greatest thing to have in Australia, nor in the world. Like it should be just a DVD for people to own, and like should be classified, and people should just have it to watch it for their own entertainment.
I would like to speak for the anime Madoka, because if the audience now think Madoka is simply unacceptable, then it could be unfair for Madoka that we have not told you the whole story. Yes, Madoka is indeed brutal and violent, but in the later part of the story, the protagonist Madoka actually has the power to choose to become the goddess of the new world. So since she has been through so much pain and argument with her friends, this actually gives her the determination to change the world and saves every single characters in the story. I believe this is the major reason why the anime Madoka has so much fun liking it. It's simply saying that a story always has two sides. Brutal could be the surface impression, but there will always be a big stories of how they overcome all the challenges.
Otaku isn't a term that is just for people that like anime or manga. There's, for instance, a band called Cassiopeia that I really enjoy. The keyboardist in that is a train otaku, so he's a big fan of trains, and he actually does voices for trains, like at the station or whatever. And you can be like a military otaku. So an otaku is really just a term that means someone that's a big fan of something.
至于我来讲，还是说英雄传说里面这个系列里面的，阿丽萨，英雄传说里阿丽萨，她是最近的英雄传说里面闪之轨迹的一个女主人公，这个角色是我非常非常喜欢的，也是恨不得把她当成自己老婆的这么一个角色。她非常萌，或者说是非常可爱，而且她本身也是一个非常坚强的人，即使是面对她所面临的一系列的不利的环境，或者是她的很复杂的家庭背景，但是她依然能够跨越这些困难，然后依然坚定自己的目标，然后往前走。其实我看到这样的背影的时候，我是非常非常尊敬的。
So a couple of years ago, I had my first experience with cosplay, because I'd always been interested in it, but I don't have the skill or precision to make my own outfit. So I ended up ordering one online. I cosplayed as Deadpool, because that character just resonated with me, in a sense, and I've had a lot of fun cosplaying as him. And then after that, I decided to go a bit more niche. So I started cosplaying as Apollo Justice from the Ace Attorney series. And that one I actually styled the wig and made some of the accessories, and that was a character that I liked, that I had a feel for, so I wanted to cosplay as someone like me. Usually an anime company will have subsidiaries, and those subsidiaries will then sort of commission figurines. So a good example would be Bandai, and Bandai own the rights to the Dragon Ball Z franchise, Sailor Moon, and Naruto, just pretty much any mainstream anime, so they commission other people to make figurines for them, and so there's no copyright infringement there. I think in terms of for manga fanfiction, it really depends on the illustrator and writer, because sometimes they'll be like, oh, that's really cool that someone enjoyed my writing so much that they create this. It's not really hurting my franchise at all, unless if it's pornographic, which might be a bit sus. But usually they're very lax on it. I mean, fan fiction can lead in any sorts of directions for spin-offs and things like that, because usually fan fiction artists will get so good that they create their own writing and series. So it's kind of in the best interest of anyone to do fan fiction.
To anyone that hasn't watched anime before, I'd probably definitely give it a shot. It's like every other thing. It's like watching a movie or like reading a book. Like there's always a story to be made, and the author's always there telling new stories. And there's a lot of very good intro animes to go into, and I'd recommend anyone just to watch them, like Sao, One Punch Man, any of that. And probably everyone's already watched Dragon Ball Z or Yu-Gi-Oh! Like you've already watched anime before, and it's not that hard to get back into.
Just give it a shot. When people say that they don't want to read manga or read anime because it's an anime or because it's a manga or because it's animated, it's kind of disheartening. It's like the most relatable thing I can probably relate it to is when people say, oh no, I don't like reading. And yes, you can not like reading, but if you don't read anything, you'll miss out on a whole bunch of things that you might enjoy.
Anime's not all bad. And so, like, same for video games. It's just like you've got to break past the sort of preconception that you might have of any media. Like when you look at things like Game of Thrones, people will see it as, oh, that's the one with the dragons and tits sort of thing. But it's like once you start watching it or reading it, you start going, oh, this is a very interesting story about, like, a very interesting fantasy story about the politics of sort of the old world, in a sense. So it's like, it's breaking past that initial preconception, and then you'll see what everyone's talking about.